Why are case studies or the case-based method of analyzing a situation or scenario so popular, and why are they becoming the dominant means or methods of learning business in business schools today? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Information is more prevalent than ever. This old idea of professors or lecturers standing up at the front of a classroom and giving you information that otherwise you would not be privy to is not the way education is moving. It's just outdated. We have more access to information than ever. So, with that being said, where can business schools add value? Well, it's all about perspective. It's all about bringing people together, giving them a curriculum or things to focus on, having them collaborate in how to focus on these things. And one of the best ways to do that is through case studies, to say, this is what's going on out there in the world. Take companies or scenarios for any given situation and turn it into a case study and say, this is their scenario. Why do you think this is happening? What do you think the causes are behind it? What should be the reactions of the leadership of the company to it, and what will be the ultimate effects of this afterwards? So that's generally what you're doing in a case study. You're saying, okay, this is what's going on. I need to know everything about it. And to do that, I need to look back and say, use this information that's out there. So I have to have an understanding of things like finance, analytics, individual psychology or management theory, whatever subject matter specific area of practice the case study is about. And ultimately, if you have this information, you then apply it to the scenario. And then you start to try to be creative. If you say, how could we address this or change the trajectory for what's happening, you start to get creative and you come up with your own ideas. And you generally do it as a group. So they put individuals together who have differing backgrounds, differing viewpoints, different understandings of the situation. And hopefully you can leverage the strength of the individuals in the group to say, this is how we should examine this situation. That's why diversity of opinion and thought is often so valuable for the organization, because people who think differently from you can introduce value into a scenario, can open your mind up to what you were not considering before in the given scenario. And then ultimately, this improves your ability to arrive at the outcome that you so desire. So with that being said, in leadership, you've heard the old adage, leader who doesn't listen to others oftentimes is surrounded by people who don't have anything to say, or you create tunnel vision. That is, you can't appreciate the viewpoints of others outside, and that weakens your ability to deal with diverse situations or sets. You become very singular in your approach to any scenario, and oftentimes that makes you less effective and vulnerable to others who take broader, more diverse viewpoints of things to come up with the plans or strategies that are going to get them to the outcome they desire. So in a way, I would say this. Case studies are the best way that business schools can deliver value to the learner, because they're presenting scenarios in real-world fashion that draws upon information, that requires analytical ability, that brings individuals together to leverage their strengths, and takes all the components of ultimately becoming proficient or effective in what you're doing and puts them together and allows you to practice that. Now, that is very difficult to replicate outside unless you find yourself in an organization facing that scenario. But in an organization, there's not this objective view of things. There's not this idea that everybody needs to be able to voice their opinion in the group and everyone is affected equally by it, because we know that's not the case. We have leaders who don't listen. We have viewpoints that predominate because of the hiring process, and you hire people like you and you all share the same viewpoint or background, and all of a sudden the lack of diversity of understanding of a given situation disappears. You have one way of approaching something, and ultimately that weakens the organization in the long run, because you start to miss things. Other organizations start to innovate, and the model that big companies tend to follow in this way is they simply acquire these other organizations or merge with them, if you will, and sometimes to try to acquire the value that they've created in a creative environment. That's why startups can be so nimble and so efficient and so novel in their approaches to things, and big companies have a difficult time doing that. because of the bureaucratic structure, because of the homogeny in viewpoint and thought and things of that nature. So, in any event, case studies are the best way to replicate that. It makes objective what otherwise is oftentimes subjective in the work world. So if you were going to learn how to do that, to replicate it, you'd have to go out and put yourself in a group and find a scenario where you can interact with others in a concerted way to do this. And you're not going to find another place that's going to allow you to do that in the same manner unless you start your own business and you build a team around you that does not just share your thought process or way of seeing things, but has a diverse viewpoint that is going to mimic that of the academic environment, which is, again, objective in nature and extremely diverse. So with that being said, that's the explanation behind it. The case-based method is going to, in my opinion, going forward in the future, continue to dominate the realm of business education. But if you believe otherwise or have an opinion on this, please jump in the forums at thebusinessprofessor.com. But regardless, I hope to see you around the platform sometime soon. Until then, take care.